Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of our podcast Film Dive, where we deep dive into our favorite movies and have conversations. And this is your host, Naman.
And this is your host, Togo.
Today on this episode, we're going to be talking about the film Beau Travail, which was directed by Claire Denis, and the movie was released in 1999,
which is the year
that I was born, and the year that Togo was 1 year old.
Yeah, a baby. It was a baby. Yeah, so I guess the reason why we wanted to talk about this movie was because we felt really strongly about it. We both watched it and we couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop talking about it. It would just pop up in our conversations here and there. So that's why we felt like, okay, why not just do a podcast? We spent like hours talking about this movie anyways.
Yeah.
But since this is our first episode, obviously it's probably going to be a little bit unstructured, casual. Let's start with the film. So we can talk about our first encounter with the film. So how did you come across?
So I first saw the movie on an Instagram story. Somebody was talking about it. I saw the poster. It looked really good. And I was like, let me watch this movie. I didn't look anything up. And I just watched it. And within the first 5 to 10 minutes, I was completely blown away by how amazing the movie looked. The cinematography was just so beautiful. And it just, I don't know, if a movie has good quality, like that's what it has, you know? It's just, it's so complete and so perfect. That's how it seemed to me. And even at my second rewatch, I was thinking, I still can't take my eyes away from this movie. I wanted to kind of take down notes for this podcast, but I still couldn't take my eyes away because I felt like if I just looked down, I would miss something that was really nice or miss a dialogue that was really important.
I think I came across it on the Letterboxd. I remember I saw the poster and I couldn't really take my eyes away from the poster because it seemed like a movie that I might really enjoy. Then watched it one evening, probably with a wine, and I was blown away. And that ending scene really hit me in a way that I haven't really felt from a lot of other films in a while. There's only certain films that really kind of struck you in that same way. For a few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the ending scene, the dance, so I would just go on YouTube, watch that scene.
You know you really like a movie when you keep rewatching scenes on YouTube.
Yeah. I'd be doing something completely different, and then it just pops into my head, and I'm like, okay, I just wanna feel that again.
So I guess we should kind of give a background on what this movie's all about. It's set in the East African country Djibouti and follows a group of French legionnaires. They're called the French Foreign Legion, and what the French Foreign Legion is it's a part of the French army that was established in the late 19th century, and what's unique about it is that the people who can join the Legion don't have to be French nationals. People from other nations can actually join the French Legion and serve the French army. So there's a number of, I don't know how many, maybe 10 to 20
I would say
soldiers.
20 soldiers.
Yeah, in the movie. And they're all from different walks of life. Some of them are from France, some of them are from Russia and other nations. The legionnaires are with two of their higher-ups. One of them is the commandant Bruno Forestier, who's not quite the protagonist. He's more in the background of the movie, but he's still there. And then there's also the General Sergeant Galu, who is kind of the protagonist / the anti-hero of this movie.
And then there is...
Yes, and then you can talk about the man.
We have Suntan, who is apparently able to seduce everyone in this movie, which was quite true for both of us too. Santan is a new soldier into the Legionnaire. I guess the characters in the movie have a strong initial feelings towards him. The way he's able to capture everyone's attention and just his presence is really felt in the room, wherever that he is. And that kind of creates a turmoil in Galu's really structured life. He is a man who has been serving, I guess, for the past 5 years. And, his life is perfectly structured. Everything is...
He describes himself as the perfect legionnaire.
Yeah.
And he takes a lot of pride in it.
Yeah, so it's his way of life that really, structured soldier life, right? Everything done perfectly, like full respect for your commander, and the legionnaires obeying him, and it's just he likes control. He likes to be in control of his surrounding, everything in his life. But this new soldier, Santan, kind of disrupts the rhythm of his life in a way that he can reverse back from it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens in the movie. Oh yeah, and then the main kind of relationship triangle is between the commander Bruno, Galu, and our soldier guy, Suntan.
Yeah, I actually, when I was first watching the movie, I didn't catch that Galu has feelings towards Santan because Santan's extremely attractive. He seems like a natural leader and he's quite charismatic. His feelings towards Santan is portrayed, or at least when he brings them out, they're subverted, There's not a trace of love, or there's not
like
a trace
that
of
trace of attraction
eroticism
is like
or attraction.
Yeah, translated into like hatred when it comes out into a behavior.
Yeah, and it was so subtle that I didn't even notice that this movie had like actual themes of homoeroticism.
Yeah.
But when I googled the movie after my first watch, the movie's category, or like its genre, was written down as an LGBT movie, and that's when it clicked. I was like, oh.
For me, it was quite the opposite. I recognized that attraction right away. I knew that Galu was attracted. Like, it was just that, like, his gaze, how he couldn't, like, stop looking at Santan, and how he's describing, it's just like this initial attraction that you feel and that you can't quite hold back. But what I didn't really recognize was that the jealousy aspect of it. So on my second rewatch, that's what I really mainly focused on, like how this feelings of jealousy towards Santan, that was more apparent to me in the second watch. And, to me, it almost felt like it was a love story at my first watch. Like, I thought, like it was really like his attraction towards Santan, and like how he just couldn't get over it till the last minute of the movie, and that's what I was kind of imagined the movie as, but there was more to the story.
Yeah, the jealousy is a really important part of it, and that part is kind of mediated by the commander Forestier, right? Because Galu makes it very clear from the beginning that he likes Forestier's approval, and he sees Forestier to be somebody who doesn't have any ideals, but that he is the one who actually does meet his ideals by being the perfect legionnaire. And when he sees Santan getting approval from Forestier, that's kind of, it's just further pushing him to the edge. Like, he just can't handle it anymore.
Yeah. I think he hates the fact that other people are also attracted to him and makes it obvious.
Yeah.
I feel like if it was the sense where Commander was not giving that kind of special treatment to Santan, then I feel like maybe he could have dealt with it a bit better, but he just couldn't deny the fact everyone else was just enamored by Santan and, was willing to show that, especially his commander, and, was kind of like torn between, I guess, his attraction to him, but then also like the jealousy of like the attention that he's getting as well.
Yeah, so like it's so hard for him, right? Because everybody keeps affirming something about Santan that he wants to bring down, that he doesn't want to admit.
His hatred towards Santan is really real. It's like there's two feelings that is right next to each other. It's like his attraction and then this hatred. And so we can maybe talk about, we quite talked about Galu as a character, but we can talk more in detail about him.
So the movie starts off in a club, and there's a lot of local women who are dancing, who are quite open. They're dressed in modern ways. And then we see Santan. He's, the first look at him kind of establishes who he is, while the other legionnaires are kind of lurking around the women. They're really excited to be there. Santan almost looks like he's not interested. He's extremely detached from the scenario. There's just a different aura about him. And we see Galu dancing with this woman who continues to be his side love interest throughout the movie.
Yeah, I think we forgot her name. She does have a name.
No, her name is Rayal.
Oh, Rayal, yeah. Yeah, so that is his love interest. But Santan is really detached, and also like using a tracking shot to introduce them kind of one after another. They show Santan first, and then they show Galu like dancing with the lady. it's almost like his attention from the lady is now gonna get disrupted by this arrival of this new soldier, Suntan, kind of hinting at it and how Galu's feelings don't get reciprocated. Him walking away and then the director showing Galu and the girl dancing is almost like how the feeling is not reciprocated at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and when Santan's walking away in the club, Galu is kind of facing his direction. You know, it's almost like he's really facing towards Santan, but he's kind of telling himself no by having like this lady in front of him.
Yeah, what I found interesting about Santan's character is that it's really mysterious. Like his responses to Galu's like angles of attacks, as he said, towards Santan, he's curious about it. He wants to know.
Yeah.
He wants to know why Galu is like giving him this different treatment, but it's not the feeling of attraction that Galu is feeling. So it's different kind of feeling, and they make it really clear, but it's different for Galu. Totally different case. And Galu as a character is, again, he starts as a perfect legionnaire, and you know, he has I think in the movie they suggest that he has been in the army for a long time, you know. He loves that structured life, like he makes his bed, you know, he is super cut about every single thing. He wants his legionnaires to obey him. He has a deep respect and love for the commander, so he loves that structured and life where the power dynamic is like super clean. But then when Santan is introduced, that power dynamic kind of starts to crumble, right? Like he starts losing control, which he hates himself, or like which he just quite doesn't understand. I think it's more about not understanding why he's feeling that way. So he as a character is kind of like going through this new wave of emotions, right?
Yeah, everything that's happening in Djibouti is a recollection of Galu's memories. And he really makes sure to highlight how when they were doing training, they were doing these things where they were ironing, where they were always doing these really structured training exercises. And he loves that structure. But whenever there's a scene that involves Santan, that structure is kind of
non-existent.
Yeah.
It's really made clear in the movies whenever their gaze meets. That's, I guess, when you get into the personal space of Galu. And then again, like because this is a recollection of memories, when he is living, I guess, a normal civil life, he has to have a structure again, right? Like he cuts down trees. Like, I don't know what that was. What was that for? He just has to have that structure again. But
like the way he makes his bed, and it's still really like he's in the army.
They do make it clear that he is pretty unfit for civil life. Like the only place that he knows how to survive is the Legion, being in the Legion, right? That's like just something that defined him and his life. I feel like the behaviors that he's doing stems from his lack of understanding of himself and what he's experiencing.
He's in extreme denial.
Yeah, like extreme denial. And
it's really like, you know, when like little kids have crushes, they just kind of deal with that by like being mean to their crush.
Yeah, like they would pull your hair
to that extreme, to the
extreme.
extreme.
Yeah, they show it in like really subverted way, and that is made really clear. All the other legionnaires know that Galu doesn't like, you know, Santan, and they tell Santan to be careful with him, right, not to get on his bad side.
The way he describes Santan when he first saw him was that he saw this man who was striking, but the feeling that Santan invoked for him was that he didn't feel good about him. He had a suspicion of him and he didn't trust him. Those feelings are kind of like, he had no basis for that at all.
Yeah.
It's like how attraction doesn't have any basis. You just see them and you feel it, right?
Yeah, sometimes
just
like attraction comes, like it kind of creeps up. And then he is kind of enamored by Santan. But then, you know, he feels like Santan just has this like secret plan or like something off his sleeve that everyone should be careful about. is like him kind of trying to understand his attraction, I guess, right? Like, what is he doing to me? It's almost like he's being like, what are you doing to me? He doesn't quite get that, yeah, like this experience of attraction is just something I guess he never really felt to that level. And the thing is, like, Santan is the type of, I guess, person that doesn't shy away from
confrontation.
Yeah, confrontation. Like, he doesn't, like, you know, look away from his gaze. And I feel like that's also what drives Galu kind of nuts too. So, like, yeah, every time
Santan really knows there's something's up. You know, Santan is not really oblivious. So I think what really drives Galu nuts at a certain point in the movie is when there's a helicopter maneuver causes a crash of the helicopter and it falls in the sea where there were already legionnaires, and one of the legionnaires is actually saved by Santan and another one passes away. And for Santan's heroic work, the commander Forrester actually gives him his due, and he tells him that he's done a great job and that he's brought honor. And that affirmation just drives Galu nuts. He just he threw his jacket and he's like screaming.
Since that incident, he confronts the commander and says that you should be careful with him. And to which the commander replies, like, backstabbing is not something you do in the Legion. That's like when he is losing himself.
Even his training, the exercises that he wants the legionnaires to do become even more aggressive after that point.
And then how he treats that one soldier who left his post.
We can talk about that.
So how the one soldier was Santan, and then the one who went to left his post, right? But he's purposefully really aggressive towards that person, that soldier who left his
post in order to take a leak.
And that kind of creates another event in the movie where the soldier who went to take a leak is kind of like digging a hole, and he's been digging it for so many hours.
Galu made him do it.
Galu made him do it, and he prohibited anyone from helping him or giving him water. And then when Santan tries to give him water, our guy Galu just kicks the water
out of Santan's hand.
And Santan actually confronts him verbally. He says that this is not fair, and then actually ends up hitting Galu.
They have a physical confrontation, and Santan hits Galu in the face. And that was the tipping point for Galu, and he makes sure to give Santan punishment that he deems that Santan deserves, which he didn't. And the thing about the punishment was that he left him in the middle of nowhere in Djibouti. They got there by their
truck or whatever.
And they left him there, but the way that Santan was supposed to come back was using his compass. What turned out to be the case was that Galu actually messed with his compass in order to...
it was premeditated. He clearly says, I will destroy
Santan.
Like bring him to his end. Which Santan is oblivious. He doesn't know the compass is broken. He says, like, say hi, to the commander. I'll see you again.
Santan is really confident that he'll make it back.
Which unfortunately is not the case.
So Santan is just completely lost. His compass is broken and he ends up close to the sea.
That event of Galu just leaving Santan in the desert, that's where his life really changes. And he does feel remorse, and he does say something like, freedom starts with remorse.
An impression that I got from that scene is maybe Galu thought that despite Santan having a broken compass, he's so skillful that he might even be able to make it back.
I don't think I felt quite that way. I didn't feel like Galu had that impression. But that's interesting. I guess that just leads to the ending scene.
So Galu doesn't, fit into civil life back in France. He also is in constant remorse and regret, and he can't get over what he did to Santan. So seems like there's really nothing left for him.
And which just kind of leads to the ending scene of him dancing, which to me is one of the few perfect scenes that I've ever watched. And I was really surprised to find out that it was only shot like 2 times, and it was complete in his own interpretation.
The actors.
And which just showed that the director and then the actor had like such a good relationship and understanding of Galu's character. So in that final scene, I guess maybe we can talk about how we interpreted that scene of him like laying down on his bed, because it's up to people's interpretation, right? To me, how I interpreted it is that he committed suicide.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and I think that makes sense. Even Claire Denis herself has said that, in the ending scene, Galu did commit suicide, but she didn't want to make it so explicit. In fact, she wanted to end it with something else, which I guess was more representative of his spirit or what he would have actually,
Wanted
put
to
out on the
be,
world.
yeah. Yeah, so that dance scene is like the exact opposite of Galu as a character. It's free, it's energetic, there's just this passion for life. He's like free from all these restraints that he has put himself in. And that transition from the pulse on his hand to that dance scene is really, really well done. It's like that kind of feeling was inside him. Like it's the expression of
kind
the
of symbolic,
feeling. Yeah, like symbolic of what he was feeling. He had the capacity for that kind of feeling, that kind of expression. But it's just that he just didn't know how to project it. And he was just kind of holding it in, and I feel like it got to the point where he couldn't hold it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just...
And it was literally pulsating out of his body.
Yeah, I think one of the videos that Claire Jenner was talking about is like almost like a dance to his death.
Yeah, if you watch the movie, you probably know that the ending was just so brilliant. And
then-
it's satisfying because we finally see Galu release this energy that he has been suppressing so badly throughout the whole movie, and has this energy that he has subverted into something so ugly. But in its purest form, that's really what it was,
Yeah.
What's in the dance scene was his, like, what he should have been.
Maybe now we can talk about, or just
More
general.
Yeah. I think what I really appreciated about this was just how subtle it was. All the, I guess, psychological processes that Galu is going through is shown in extremely subtle ways, and you kind of have to pay attention, and paying attention to this movie also forces you to have the tactile experiences that this movie offers you with.
Yeah.
Because this whole movie is so close to the sand, the sun, the sky, and what the setting has offered this movie requires precise attention from you. And I feel like that just went so well hand in hand.
Yeah. I think the one word that just came to my mind when I was watching it the second time was just like I could describe this movie as pulsating. It's just from the beginning, there's just something that is pulsating. Like you're quite on the edge. Like of something that is just like on the horizon and that's coming closer.
I think that was so expertly portrayed because in the movie, like in the beginning, they make it clear that all of this is Galu's memory, recollections. And so it's kind of like we're inside Galu's mind, and we're also feeling his pulsations.
Yeah.
So
like,
the film's music having the sort of pulsation, and the scenes, the exercises having the sort of pulsation.
yeah, I guess the one word that's frequently associated with the movie is that like a rhythm. I mean, the last song is like rhythm of the night.
And like just thinking about that, I really
Yeah.
really like the consistency. We can also talk about how we felt about the female gaze in this movie, because let's not forget the movie is directed by Claire Denis, and the cinematographer who also played a huge role in this movie is Agnes Godard, who's also a lady.
Yeah, and the editor.
The editor is
too.
also a lady. There is something special about being a female director, because what you're making is really a product of you, and being of a certain gender versus the other gender or any other gender is extremely polarizing. And so that is definitely going to reflect on somebody's taste and somebody's choice of what is significant.
Also, I think female directors are able to maybe capture sensuality like a little bit better, but not in an overtly erotic way. For example, like Claire Denis clearly said that Rael, the girl that we see as being like a love interest for Galu at the beginning, in her real life, she was starting her life as a prostitute. She was 18, she was starting. It wasn't the case that she was shy in front of the camera, but she didn't want her job to be the main focus, which, Claire Denis translated that feeling really well. She chose to present Rael in a more discreet manner, right? All those choices of discreetness is also really brilliant. There's no like a super obvious sexualization of women's bodies or like male bodies. It's just bodies in a shot that's passing by the cinematographer.
The cinematographer mentions it as well. The setting in Djibouti is that it's extremely hot, it's very arid, and so when they're doing their exercises on the sand, that's really just the reality. They have to be shirtless, they have to be on very close to the sand, And what really just came out of the scene naturally is that they're really exposed, which some might interpret as being an intentional
deliberate
act
choice.
an intentional choice made by female directors to make men seem really soft and really sexualized. But I think
she clearly says like, I was just looking at what they were doing.
Yeah.
I was not thinking about them in a sexual way. When scenes are just really overtly sexualized, you become super aware of the fact that you're watching it. But with this movie, you don't feel that way. The scenes of Galu leaving like this juice or something in Rael's hand when she's sleeping, right? It's just this gestures and this discreet gestures of sensuality and sexuality, but like they don't just throw it in your face and be like, there you go, this is what you came here for, right? Yeah, that's what I really liked about the movie. It's like a warm embrace.
we can also talk about just how much the movie focuses on beauty rather than focusing on sexualizing men. It's more just about really observing their beauty. And
yeah, it's like beauty of relationships too.
even the title Beau Travail is French for beautiful work, apparently. And so all the beautiful decisions that they've made in this movie is not an accident. It's not an accident that they hired these actors who are good looking and these actresses who are also very beautiful. And it's not an accident that they're in an extremely beautiful area in Djibouti.
Yeah.
So all of that is intentional, which also makes it interesting why the character Galu had such ugly actions. Why he had to make such ugly decisions.
It's like
Because-
in direct contrast with what's all these beautiful things surrounding him. And I feel like the movie really presented really natural, a realistic relationship. It's like the relationships that you see are not forced. Between Galu and Rael, for example, right? Their relationship doesn't, function to serve like a really specific purpose. Okay, that's not to say like they didn't have any purpose. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's not like they put it in there to throw in some love interest.
If you look at it one way, Rael kind of helps Galu cope with the fact that he's having these other feelings.
Maybe, yeah. And also, like, I guess, presents that Galu is also not a totally closed up person. He has this tenderness that he shows to Rael, which is just made clear by certain scenes. It just makes you wonder why he is so tender and gentle with Rael versus how he treats the real object of his desire, who is Santan, right? Maybe that goes into how it was kind of taboo to, be attracted to the same sex.
I was curious to know exactly how Rael felt about Galu because there's a shot of him looking straight at the camera and she looks very playful. It almost makes it seem like they do have something authentic going on, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, to me, their relationship does feel authentic, but I think Galu just doesn't desire Rael in the same way as he does with Santan.
I guess for Galu, it's not the case that he has nothing towards Rael. He does actually remember her really fondly. He keeps on thinking about her as well.
You get glimpses of her. But I just think that relationship could have fit into his structured life, right? Like it makes sense, it's allowed, it's not something that you shouldn't do. Maybe that's why he didn't pursue it for longer. But he already lost, I guess, his desire for that life. There was just no going back from that guilt and remorse. So
Galu also did appreciate his life as a legionnaire. He also did appreciate the beauty of just being there, and I think Rael was also a part of that. It was a part of his very beautiful memory as a legionnaire.
Looking at Galu and how he acts, how he's holds so much inside, you're just like, just let it go. You just want to feel like, just let it go one time. Just admit it to yourself. I feel like that's our initial reaction to something that we don't understand too, is that we're like confused about why we're feeling that way. We want to deny that we like feel that way. If it's something that we feel like we shouldn't be feeling, that kind of feeling is translated so well, and it just makes you want to just shake Galu and just be like, hey, like, man, you need to like just accept it.
Also, I think his situation is not completely unique in the context of having homosexual desires. And the way they explored this is completely new to me. It reminds me of situations where extremely homophobic people actually themselves turned out to be part of the,
Yeah, it's like that subverted
LGBT.
yeah, like the projection.
And it's just the process of coping.
Yeah, it's like how Galu just wants to be in control. But deep down, Galu knows that Santan, like, he just has a grip over him. Like,
Yeah.
he knows it.
He really tried to control Santan, but
Like,
that was only a symptom of him having no control over himself.
Yeah, like, I feel like he knew that Santan had this overwhelming power over him that he can't fight, and that's just what's driving him crazy.
So we also have to mention that the movie is based off of Herman Melville's Billy Budd. It's a book that Melville was working on, and it was unfinished at the time of his death. And the three characters are pretty much directly based off of the three characters in the book. There's Billy Budd, who is basically Santan, and then there's the captain of the ship, and then there's also another commander who has those feelings towards Billy Budd. Apparently this was written around the time when a lot of people in literature were starting to explore homosexual identities. So that's what, I guess, gave rise to the book Billy Budd. Claire Denis mentioned how she heard the word foreign and immediately she thought of the Foreign Legion. And she kind of put the pieces together. She put from one side Billy Budd and then from the other side the idea of the French Legion together. And it just kind of created the two necessary components for this movie.
Yeah, but she was also offered
What
from
was
like
she
a
offered?
French TV to make a movie about legionnaires.
Oh,
to be a foreigner.
Yeah. So she was asked to make a movie about being a foreigner.
And people didn't like the idea of her exploring homosexuality in this movie about Legion. I think what the French TV was expecting was something more like a documentary style or like, you know, just something that's not as like deviational as what she wanted to present. But she was quite set on doing it in the way that she wanted.
Which we really appreciate.
Yeah, Claire Denis is a wonderful director.
We didn't talk about the face-off scene. It really perfectly encapsulates the relationship between Santan and Galu. You know, looking at somebody's eyes, what does that represent? It does represent that you have a connection, and this intense stare into somebody in one way, it really communicates intense attraction. But when they're walking towards themselves like that, we can also see that hostility.
Yeah.
And I feel like that scene just really encapsulates both of these emotions.
Yeah, and the only person who knew what was unfolding was the commander, Bruno. He was able to sense that relationship that was going on between Santan and Galu.
It's really similar on Billy Budd as well. The commander was the one who's the voice of reason. And I think he also really admired Billy Budd.
Yeah, so overall, the movie really just made me feel excited about life. It just kind of reminded me, I guess, that life's like pretty rich. And, you know, it just gives you this fraction of what life is in a really like 1 hour. And
focuses on that little fraction of life very well.
It's like an experience that you can kind of relate to because it's so human. I feel like that's what made this movie really great and special to us.
Really enjoyed, I guess, the tactile aspect of the movie and how close it felt. Just following Galu's, his psychological progression is really subtle. Like I didn't notice it, you know, when I first watched it. Following it really carefully is really interesting and really mesmerizing.
So yeah, that was our experience with Beau Travail. We will make the next podcast on, we're not sure what film yet. And hopefully the next one will be more structured.
If you listen to this, I guess, tell us what you want to hear about.
Yeah, and hopefully the next one will be more structured, more clean. But that's it. Thanks for, if you listened it up until the end, thanks for staying with us.
Thanks for tuning in.
Okay, I think that's good.